Well folks, it's Halloween. Time to bust out the spooky games. Tonight we're going to delve into the spooky little pixel art game called the Count Lucanor by studio Baroque Decay. The Count Lucanor has you playing as young Hans, who strikes out from his impoverished home in search of riches and fame. He comes across an enigmatic kobold who offers him a lifetime of riches and lordship if he can complete one simple task. Guess his name. To do so will mean that Hans must venture into the derelict castle of Lord Tenebre and find pieces of the puzzle that will give him the answer. The studio that developed the Count Lucanor, Baroque Decay, is an indie studio that self-describes as formed by people around the world. The Count Lucanor is their first release game that has made it to market, but not their first project. The Count Lucanor is sort of a spiritual successor to Baroque Decay's first project, Catequesis. Or that word in Spanish, which looks like it's pronounced almost the exact same way as in English because it's based on a Greek word, so this is literal semantics. Let's move on. The Count Lucanor is loosely based on a series of folktales of the same name. A bit of quick and sloppy Googling told me that these tales are something of a Spanish analog to Aesop's Fables or Mother Goose. I won't say their full name because it's a spoiler for this game, and in the folktales, the namesake Count Lucanor would have some sort of dilemma, and his servant would not want to directly advise him, as it was not his place. However, he would tell the Count a story that reminded him of the Count's dilemma. These were written in the 16th century by one Don Juan Manuel. No, not that Don Juan. And on top of inspiring this game, also inspired a few other folktales in other languages. I'm not sure if any of these folktales had eldritch horror or any sort of Cronenberg-esque monsters in them, though. As a little personal tidbit, I was given this game directly by Baroque Decay when it first came out in 2016, when I only had a couple thousand subscribers. I hadn't quite figured out my style of video yet, and I was new to this whole keys for video thing. And I just made a crappy Let's Play that didn't even get 100 views between all the videos, because I wasn't treating this game as it should be. I'm actually really happy that Halloween season is giving me an opportunity to take a crack at this game again, now that I know what I'm doing. I think I know, anyway. This game is played through the eyes of 10-year-old Hans. Hans is a child. He's not strong enough to swing a sword or operate any sort of weapon that might do him some good against the entities that would do him harm in this game, and he's got little legs, so running isn't really an option either. There's one walk speed in this game, and God help you if you accidentally blunder into an enemy. Hans' main strategy while he's wandering the castle is to hide under tables, behind curtains, around corners, wherever he can go where the enemies can't see him. Hans' size also affords him another advantage, which is that he can fit into drainage outlets, which make for useful shortcuts and a good way to get yourself out of a bad situation if you're quick-witted. Hans will need to evade house servants, eldritch goats, and the red camerlengo, among other things, if he's to go from room to room in the castle to get all the letters to spell the kobold's name and win all the money. Most of the puzzles in this game are pretty straightforward from the outset. Move boxes, pull levers, walk into the right room at the right time on the right panel so you don't burst into flame. What makes them interesting is that monsters can come into the room, or by your own fault you might pull the wrong lever and release one of those goat things, which makes the puzzle a whole lot harder when you're being chased by something that wants to eat you. As you complete puzzles and gain letters, more doors will be open and more of the castle's servants will start roaming around, making your life harder. The most interesting bit about the puzzles is the use of light. Almost everything in the castle is pitch dark, owing to how most of the servants and otherwise being near blind. So you're going to have to take the advice of a friendly treasure hunter and use candles. You won't just be using them as you walk around though, but it will be vitally important to place them on the ground so you can see what's happening off in the distance. Candles are limited though, so you're going to need to be strategic about where you place them, or else you're going to find yourself in a tight spot. Lucky for you though, if you put down one too many candles, you can always pick one up off the ground, and there are plenty of braziers you can light in certain areas, which will save you on your precious candles. The Count Lucanor heavily uses player choice to guide what happens in the later game. Depending on your actions in the early and mid-game, you might not be able to get certain endings, or through a bad choice you might miss out on the only consistent way to get money, or even the most important item in the game. This game has 5 different ending scenarios, which I'm not going into primarily because they're very much worth experiencing for yourself, but also in part that Nvidia had an update midway through my footage gathering, and Shadow to Play decided that it did not like this game anymore. And I had saved saved over the parts I needed to go back and get. Sucks to be me. Speaking of saving is also an important choice in this game. In order to save the game, you're going to need to throw a golden coin into the wishing well in the center of the castle. The same coins that you're going to need to purchase things, like a key that might be the secret to solving the kobold's riddle, or one of the letters. Coins are even rarer than candles, and unless you made the right choice in the early game and are willing to trade off your healing items for money is a very finite resource, and it's hard to come by. Some people didn't like this idea when it came out, but personally I liked it as it made you gamble against your own competence in order to get items. Do I be stingy at the well in order to afford the gold key and potentially risk losing over an hour of progress if I get cornered by a baddie? Or do I forego the surefire way to solve the puzzle, but have the comfort of knowing I won't lose all my major progress in the event that the red Camerlengo decides to take a stroll down the hall? That's a toughie. Let's take some time to talk about the aesthetic of this game. Baroque Decay self-describes their game's graphics as a combination of 8-bit and 16-bit pixel art. The word pixel art gets thrown around a lot in the indie scene, especially in the early 2010s, after Fez and Braid made it big, and a lot of low-budget indies use this as a way to pass off low-fidelity graphics as stylization, even though it's hard to tell what anything is and the color palettes leave a lot to be desired. This is entirely not the case with the Count Lucanor. This game has some of the best looking 16-bit cinematics I've seen in an 8-bit, 16-bit game, and the world clearly displays what's going on around you and is definitely of a distinguished style. It's all very macabre, and the further you go into the castle, the more grotesque it all becomes in the face of the cute little cottage that it all started in. The majority of what you're going to see in this video is from the first half of the game before the big reveal takes place, but trust me, as scary as he is, the red Camerlengo is pretty mild compared to what's waiting for you once you solve the kobold's riddle. The Count Lucanor also has excellent sound design. The soundtrack is a chiptune organ in the style of Bach, fitting with a fairy tale-ish setting, but the average indie would just stop at the sweet midis and use stock gun sounds for everything else. There's plenty of creepy, disgusting sounding noises coming from just in your peripheral hearing range as if something's lurking around the corner, and more often than not, there's something is around the corner. And there's a lot of little things that make certain parts of the game extra spooky. Here's one of my favorite examples from the game. Okay, now I'm really hoping that the panning of this clip is preserved in the edit, but the way the door instinctively sends you hiding under the table and the footsteps are all you have to go on as to who or what just decided to enter the room you're in. It all gets topped off with your introduction to the red Camerlengo, who seems to be in a silly mood about killing all the people trying to win the Count's treasure. Have fun checking all those dummy chests while he wanders around the room. The Count Lucanor has this delightfully morbid vibe to the whole game. There are flesh monsters wandering the halls. The shepherd doesn't seem to be overly concerned that his flock decided he'd look better without a body, and then there's Pig Boy over here. And remember, this is only the first half of the game. We haven't even gotten into the final area and the closest thing to a boss fight this game has. It gets wild below the castle. If you're looking for something short, sweet, and spooky, I'd wholeheartedly suggest this game. It's $10 in the Humble Store, which you can purchase through a link in the description, which will not only help out this channel, but also support charity in the process. This game can be completed in 4 to 5 hours, but there's 5 different endings depending on the choices you made in early and mid-game, so it keeps things interesting and adds replay value. This game also recently released on the Nintendo Switch if you want to take your spooky on the go, but that'll set you back $15 instead of $10. Baroque Decay also released another game in a similar vein to the Count Lucanor called Yuppie Psycho, where you play a new guy in his first salaried job and things get weird around the water cooler. I haven't had a chance to play this one myself yet, but the pixel art in the trailer looks even better than Lucanor's, and I'm hoping I'll find time to play it sooner or later. I've got a bit of a backlog. There's also the matter of Catequesis, the original game that Baroque Decay was making before shelving it in favor of the Count Lucanor. Going on the dev blog posts, the 2 trailers, and 1 3-minute gameplay video that was on their old YouTube channel, Catequesis had a lot of the elements that went into the Count Lucanor, such as using candles, RPG-style puzzles. The protagonist is even vaguely reminiscent of Hans, except he has a gun. Catequesis is a word that means introductions into the way of Christianity. originally meant for new converts, but eventually to children as Christianity became more of a prevalent thing in the Western world. It's sort of a precursor to Sunday school. This describes what the game would have been about. From what's revealed about the game's plot, the protagonist meets his girlfriend's parents for the first time and learns that she and her father have an illness that can only be treated by performing a ritualistic rite with a neighbor girl who lives down the hall. The protagonist seems to agree to take part in this for the sake of his new significant other and her dad, or at least he takes part in it willingly or not. But something goes wrong and all sorts of literal hell breaks loose in the building they live in. From the look of the trailer footage, it seems the protagonist is going to have to learn about these strange rites and rituals if he wants to survive. A catechesis, if you will. Maybe I'll take a deeper dive into Catequesis another day, but for now, I'll wrap it up. In the AMA on the Nintendo Switch subreddit, Baroque Decay said that Catequesis is still paused, not cancelled, and that they'd like to release a trilogy of horror games. They did recently release Yuppie Psycho earlier this year, which makes for 2 games, so who knows? Maybe we'll see it in 2020. That'll do us for today. I hope you have a happy Halloween, and be sure to stay tuned for the rest of the weekend for more spooks and surprises. Liking this video helps me out a lot, and be sure to share this video out in hopes that Baroque Decay will get motivated to finish their trilogy. If you'd like to help me cover the cost of producing these videos, I do run a Patreon account where you can support me NPR style so I can continue providing you with all the creepy indie stuff I can find. In the meantime, enjoy the cat video. Okay, so Frisk is still in his hidey hole, but now he wants to bring his birdie in. Oh, did you stop now that you knew I was filming? Your hole isn't big enough to bring your favorite birdie in. You're gonna have to come out to get it back from me. Holy he's like tore this, like, he's ripping it open. I think I just helped him.